The quiet hum of Imperial Alert Station 47 was broken by a sudden sharp alarm. Red lights flashed across the curved metal walls as 3 Galactic Empire officers jumped to their stations. Their gray uniforms seemed to glow under the emergency lights. "What is it?" Commander Voss asked, his tall figure moving quickly to the main screen. His eyes, dark and serious, scanned the blinking dots on the display. Officer Trell's fingers moved fast across the control panel. "Unknown ship, sir. It just entered the Kildaran sector through the outer gate." "Impossible," Voss said. "No ships are planned for this sector for the next 3 cycles." The station was small but important, sitting at the edge of what the Empire considered a vital trade route. For years, Station 47 had a simple job: watch the stars, log the approved ships, and report anything unusual. Today was different. "Get me visual," Voss ordered, his voice tight. The main screen changed to show a sleek, dark ship moving steadily through space. Its design was unlike the rounded shapes of Imperial vessels. This ship was angular, with sharp lines and what looked like heavy weapons on its sides. Officer Mara gasped. "Sir, that's a human ship." The room went silent. Humans were not allowed in this sector. Humans were not allowed anywhere outside their own solar system. Not since the war. "Check." Again, Voss said, but he already knew Mara was right. The ship's design was unmistakable. Trell's voice shook slightly. "Confirmed, sir. Ship identification reads as UES Defiant. That's a human warship." "How is this possible?" Voss whispered, more to himself than to his officers. "The treaty is clear. Humans are confined to their system." 20 years ago, the Galactic Empire had made what they thought would be an easy first contact with Earth. Instead, the Empire lost 3 capital ships in a short, shocking war. Humans fought with unexpected skill and technology that surprised the much older Empire. The peace treaty that followed placed Earth under a strict quarantine. Humans were labeled as dangerous, unpredictable, and not ready for galactic society. "Sir, should we alert Imperial Command?" Mara asked. Voss nodded quickly. "Send the highest priority alert, use code Black, and try to contact that ship." As Mara sent the urgent message, Trell opened a communication channel. "UES Defiant, this is Imperial Alert Station 47. You have entered restricted space. Explain your presence immediately." The only response was silence. "UES Defiant, respond now or we will consider this an act of war." Still nothing. "Sir, they're ignoring us," Trell said, "but they're not attacking. They're just continuing on their course." Voss studied the ship's path on the screen. "Where are they headed?" "If they maintain this course, they'll reach the Centauri outpost in about 6 hours." "The weapons research facility?" Voss felt cold fear in his stomach. "Alert the outpost, and keep trying to contact that ship." Captain James Walker stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the stars through the large front window. His hands were clasped behind his back, his face calm despite the tension around him. "Captain, the Imperial Station is hailing us again," said Communications Officer Parker. "This is the 5th attempt." Walker nodded but said nothing. "Sir," Lieutenant Rogers spoke up from the weapons station, "maybe we should answer them. The longer we stay silent, the more nervous they'll get." Walker turned to face his crew. The bridge was filled with the best officers Earth had to offer. They were all watching him, waiting for an explanation he couldn't give them. "Not yet. We continue as planned," Walker said firmly. "Imperial Command needs to see us before we talk. A message from a small border station won't get the attention we need." "But sir," Rogers pressed, "we're violating the treaty. The Empire could see this as an act of war." "That's exactly what they did to us 3 weeks ago," Walker said, his voice turning hard. "And we're going to show them we know it." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew about the attack on the Mars research station. 42 scientists killed in what Earth's government called a tragic accident. But the message Walker had received told a different story. First Officer Bell moved closer to Walker. "The crew deserves to know why we're risking war," she said quietly. Walker looked at the worried faces around him. They had followed his orders without question when they left Earth, when they used the new jump drive to bypass Imperial border patrols, and when they entered forbidden space. They deserved some truth. 3 weeks ago, Walker began, someone attacked our Mars station. The official story is that it was an accident, a failure in the oxygen systems. That's a lie. He touched a control panel, and a small hologram appeared over the central table. It showed ships firing on the Mars dome, ships with the unmistakable design of Imperial fighters. This footage was sent to me by someone inside the Empire, Walker continued. Someone who doesn't want war any more than we do. Someone who says there's a group within the Empire trying to provoke a new conflict with Earth. The crew stared at the hologram, shock on their faces. We're not here to start a war, Walker said firmly. We're here to prevent one. But to do that, we need to speak directly to Imperial Command, not some border station. We need to show them we know what happened and we can reach them whenever we want. And if they attack us? Bell asked. Walker's face was grim. Then we show them why that's a bad idea. Back at Station 47, things were getting worse. Imperial Command had responded to their alert with a simple message. Hold position. Battle group incoming. A battle group? Mara whispered. They're sending a battle group against one ship? Voss understood the Empire's response. Humans were feared for a reason. During the short war, a single human ship had destroyed an Imperial cruiser 3 times its size. The Empire had superior numbers, but humans had shown surprising tactical skills and weapons technology. Sir, the human ship is not changing course, Trell reported, still heading toward the Centauri outpost. Keep monitoring them, Voss ordered, and prepare all data logs for the battle group. They'll want to know everything about how that ship got past our outer defenses. As the station continued its urgent work, the UES Defiant moved steadily deeper into Imperial space. In 6 hours, it would reach a critical Imperial facility. In 6 hours, the fate of 2 civilizations might change forever. Aboard the Defiant, Captain Walker looked at the star map showing their path. The evidence was secured in the ship's data core. The plan was in motion. There was no turning back. For Earth, he said quietly to himself. For peace. Grand Admiral Tarn stood with his hands behind his back, watching the large holographic display that dominated the command center of the Imperial flagship Dominion. His weathered face, marked with the scars of past battles, remained expressionless as officers rushed around him. Show me this human vessel again, he ordered. The display shifted to show the UES Defiant moving steadily through Imperial space. Tarn had fought in the brief but bloody war with humans 20 years ago. He had personally witnessed what a single human ship could do when cornered. What do we know about their capabilities? Tarn asked. Intelligence Officer Merrick stepped forward, a thin man with sharp eyes and a datapad in his hand. Very little, Admiral. After the treaty, we placed monitoring stations near their system, but the humans have been careful about what they test in open space. This ship, he pointed at the display, shows features we haven't seen before. Explain. Our scans indicate their hull is made of a new alloy, stronger than what they used during the war. Their engine signature suggests they've improved their propulsion system significantly. And there's something else. Merrick paused. They somehow bypassed our outer defense grid without triggering any alarms. We only detected them once they were already inside the Kelduran sector. Tarn's eyes narrowed. A stealth system? Possibly, or something we don't understand yet. The Admiral turned to his second-in-command. Captain Lorek, what is the status of our battle group? Lorek, a tall woman with a tight gray bun, looked up from her console. All ships in position, sir. The human vessel is surrounded. They cannot escape. Good. Open a channel. The communications officer nodded, and Tarn stepped forward. UES Defiant, this is Grand Admiral Tarn of the Galactic Empire. You have violated the treaty and entered restricted space. Power down your weapons and engines immediately. This is your only warning. The bridge fell silent as they waited. Tarn had expected immediate compliance. The Empire's battle group consisted of 5 heavy cruisers and the massive Dominion. No single ship, especially a human one, would dare to challenge such force. but the Defiant continued its course. "Sir, they're not responding," the communications officer said. Tarn frowned. "Target their engines, prepare to fire a warning shot." "Wait," Merrick interrupted. "They're transmitting something." A moment later, a human face appeared on the main display. A man with short gray hair and determined eyes looked out at them. "Admiral Tarn," the man said calmly. "I am Captain James Walker of the United Earthship Defiant. I recognize your authority in this sector, but I cannot comply with your order." Tarn stepped closer to the display. "Captain Walker, you are in violation of a treaty your own government signed. Turn your ship around immediately or we will open fire." "I'm afraid I can't do that, Admiral. We have evidence that Imperial forces attacked a human research station 3 weeks ago. 42 civilians died. We're here to speak with your high command about this unprovoked act of war." Murmurs spread through the bridge. Tarn's face remained stone-like. "These are serious accusations, Captain. The Empire has not authorized any action against Earth or its colonies." "Then you should be very interested in the proof we carry," Walker replied. "I propose a meeting, just you and me. My ship will remain where it is under the watch of your battle group." Tarn considered the offer. If he opened fire now, it would mean war. If the humans truly had evidence of an attack, he needed to see it. "Very well, Captain. You may board the Dominion with 2 officers. Any sign of deception, and your ship will be destroyed." Walker nodded. "Agreed. We'll prepare a shuttle." As the transmission ended, Captain Lorick moved to Tarn's side. "Admiral, this could be a trap." "Possibly," Tarn said. "But something doesn't add up. If humans wanted war, they wouldn't send a single ship. Prepare the meeting room and triple the guards. I want to hear what Captain Walker has to say." Lieutenant Kate Miller paced nervously in the Defiant's weapons control room. As the ship's tactical officer, she knew better than anyone how outmatched they were. The Imperial battle group could destroy them in seconds. "He's going to get us all killed," she muttered. First Officer Bell entered the room and heard her comment. "The captain knows what he's doing, Lieutenant." Miller stopped pacing. "Does he? We're 1 ship against 6, and now he's planning to board their flagship? It's suicide." Bell's expression softened. "Kate, there's more happening than you know. The captain received that transmission from someone high in the Imperial command, someone who wants to prevent war as much as we do." "You believe that? That someone in the Empire would help us?" "Not everyone agrees with the quarantine policy. Some believe humans in the Empire could benefit from working together." Miller leaned against the console. "So what's the real plan here? We can't possibly think the Empire will just apologize and let us go home." "The plan is to show them the truth," Bell said, "and hope there are enough reasonable people in their leadership to listen." The ship's intercom crackled. "First Officer Bell and Lieutenant Miller, report to the shuttle bay. You're accompanying the captain to the Dominion." Miller's eyes widened. "Me? Why me?" "Because you know our weapons systems better than anyone, and the captain wants to be transparent about our capabilities. We're not here to threaten them." As they walked toward the shuttle bay, Miller felt her heart racing. She had never set foot on an Imperial ship before. Few humans had, and returned to tell about it. Captain Walker was waiting for them by the small shuttle. His uniform was perfectly pressed, his expression determined. "Lieutenant, I understand you have concerns," he said directly. Miller straightened her posture. "Sir, I'm worried this meeting is too risky." "It is," Walker admitted. "But sometimes the riskiest path is the only one that avoids war. Do you know how many people died in our last conflict with the Empire? Over 30,000, sir. That was from just 3 days of fighting. Imagine what would happen now with both sides more advanced. Billions could die." Walker's eyes held hers. "I need you with me, Lieutenant. The Imperial Admiral needs to understand our weapons capabilities directly from you." Miller nodded slowly. "I understand, sir." The 3 officers boarded the shuttle, and Miller watched through the viewport as they left the safety of the Defiant. The Imperial flagship grew larger as they approached, its massive hull dwarfing their small craft. "Remember," Walker said quietly, "we're not just representing our ship were representing all of humanity. As their shuttle entered the Dominion's docking bay, Miller saw rows of Imperial soldiers waiting. Their dark uniforms and stern faces made her stomach tighten with fear. Walker seemed to sense her anxiety. "Keep your head high, Lieutenant. We have nothing to be ashamed of. We're here for truth and justice." The shuttle door opened with a soft hiss and Captain Walker stepped out first, his back straight and his gaze steady. Bell and Miller followed close behind. Grand Admiral Tarn stood waiting, flanked by his officers and guards. His cold eyes studied the humans carefully. "Captain Walker," Tarn said, his deep voice echoing in the large docking bay. "Welcome aboard, the Dominion. Now show me this evidence that was worth risking war for." The meeting room aboard the Imperial flagship Dominion was cold and stark. Metal walls reflected the harsh white lights, and the large oval table seemed to stretch endlessly between the two groups. On one side sat Captain Walker, First Officer, Bell, and Lieutenant Miller. On the other, Grand Admiral Tarn, Intelligence Officer Merrick, and Captain Lorek. The tension in the room was thick enough to touch. Imperial guards stood at each corner, their weapons ready. "You claim our forces attacked your research station," Admiral Tarn began, his voice echoing in the quiet room. "This is a serious accusation, Captain Walker." Walker nodded. "It is, and I wouldn't make it without proof." He placed a small device on the table. "May I?" Tarn nodded stiffly. Walker pressed a button, and a hologram appeared above the table. It showed the Mars Research Station, a large dome structure on the red planet's surface. Then came the attack. 3 ships swooped down, firing energy weapons that cut through the dome's outer shell. The air rushed out and small figures could be seen being pulled into the vacuum of space. "These ships," Walker said, pointing to the attackers, "are Imperial fighters. Type 7 strikers, if I'm not mistaken." Merrick leaned forward, studying the footage carefully. "The design is similar, but—" He frowned and looked at Tarn. "Admiral, something isn't right." Tarn's eyes narrowed. "Explain." "The engine signature is wrong. Imperial strikers don't leave that kind of light trail when they fire their thrusters." Walker nodded. "We noticed that too. At first we thought they might be older models or perhaps modified." "Who sent you this footage?" Tarn demanded. "It came through an anonymous channel. The sender claimed to be someone within your government who wants to prevent another war." Tarn exchanged glances with his officers. "Captain Lorek, order a full inventory of all Type 7 strikers in the fleet. I want to know if any are missing." Lorek nodded and stepped away to give the order. "While we wait for that report," Tarn continued, "perhaps Lieutenant Miller can explain how your ship managed to bypass our outer defense grid." Miller looked to her captain, who nodded. "We've developed a new drive system," she explained. "It creates a localized fold in space that allows us to jump short distances without using traditional hyperspace lanes." Merrick's eyes widened. "That's impossible. That technology is theoretical at best." "Not anymore," Walker said simply. Before Tarn could respond, Captain Lorek returned with a data pad. Her face was grim. "Sir, all Type 7 strikers are accounted for. However—" She hesitated. "I found something unusual in the records. 3 Type 7s were decommissioned last year and sent to Lord Dren's research facility for study." Tarn's face darkened. "Lord Dren. Of course." Walker leaned forward. "Who is Lord Dren?" For a moment it seemed Tarn wouldn't answer. Then he sighed heavily. "Lord Dren is a member of the Imperial High Council. He oversees technological research and development, and he has been vocal about his views on humanity." "What views?" Bell asked. "He believes your species is a threat that should be eliminated, not just contained," Merrick answered bluntly. "He has pushed for years to change our policy from quarantine to something more permanent." A cold silence fell over the room. Walker's hands tightened into fists on the table. "You think he ordered the attack on our station?" he finally asked. "I don't know," Tarn admitted, "but it warrants investigation." Lieutenant Miller, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. If Dren wanted to provoke a war, attacking the research station makes sense. It would look like an accident to most people, but Earth's military would investigate and find evidence of Imperial weapons. We would prepare for war. Walker nodded. And then what? Even if Earth struck back, we couldn't defeat your entire empire. Tarn's expression grew troubled. Unless Dren has a plan we don't know about, a weapon or strategy that would give him an advantage. The door to the meeting room suddenly slid open. A young Imperial officer rushed in, breathing hard. Admiral, urgent message from the Emperor himself. Tarn stood immediately. What is it? Sir, Lord Dren's research facility has gone dark. All communications cut off 3 hours ago. The Emperor demands an explanation. Tarn and Walker exchanged looks. In that moment, something shifted between them, a mutual understanding that transcended their different uniforms. Captain, Tarn said slowly, I believe we may have a common enemy. Walker nodded. It seems that way. Tarn turned to his officers. Prepare my shuttle. I need to speak with the Emperor directly. Then to Walker. Your ship will remain here under guard. No communications with Earth until we sort this out. Unacceptable, Walker said firmly. I propose an alternative. Your ship continues to the Imperial capital with proof of what happened at Mars. My ship investigates Dren's facility. You expect me to allow a human warship to approach a sensitive Imperial research facility? Alone? Not alone, Walker countered. Send a small escort with us. Enough to watch us, but not so many that we'd attract Dren's attention if he's monitoring Imperial fleet movements. Tarn considered this. And why would I trust you? Because, Walker said quietly, 42 innocent scientists died. If Dren is responsible, I want him to face justice. Imperial justice, if necessary. This isn't about starting a war, it's about preventing one. After a long moment, Tarn nodded. One cruiser will accompany you. Captain Lorek will command it. She has my complete trust. And Lieutenant Miller will remain here, Walker added, surprising everyone, as our liaison and to answer any technical questions about our capabilities. Miller's eyes widened. Sir? The Admiral needs to trust us, Walker explained. This shows our good faith. Tarn nodded slowly. Very well. The Defiant and the cruiser Vigilant will depart for Dren's facility in 2 hours. I will take the Dominion and the rest of the battle group to the capital. As the meeting broke up, Miller pulled her captain aside. Sir, are you sure about this? Splitting up our forces? Walker's voice dropped to a whisper. We don't have a choice, Kate. If Dren is trying to start a war, we need to find out why and stop him, and if it's a trap? He glanced at Tarn, who was giving orders to his officers. I think the Admiral is just as concerned as we are. He could have destroyed our ship the moment we entered this sector. He didn't. Miller nodded slowly. Be careful, sir. You too, Lieutenant. Remember everything we've talked about. The future of Earth may depend on it. As Walker and Bell prepared to return to the Defiant, Tarn approached them one last time. Captain, he said in a low voice, if what you suspect is true, and Lord Dren is operating without the Emperor's knowledge, then we both face great danger. Tread carefully. Walker met the Admiral's eyes. We always do, Admiral. It's how we've survived this long. For the first time, a hint of a smile touched Tarn's stern face. Perhaps that's why Lord Dren fears your kind so much. As the humans departed, Tarn watched them go with troubled eyes. 20 years ago, he had fought against humans as enemies. Now he might be forced to fight alongside them against a threat from within his own empire. The game had changed, and the rules were no longer clear. The UES Defiant moved silently through space alongside the Imperial cruiser Vigilant. They were an odd pair, the sleek, angular human warship and the larger, curved Imperial vessel. Both ships had their weapon systems on standby, ready but not active. Trust was thin between them. On the bridge of the Defiant, Captain Walker studied the star map showing their destination. Lord Dren's research facility orbited a small moon in a remote system far from the usual Imperial patrol routes. First, Officer Bell stood beside him. "We'll be there in 20 minutes, sir." Walker nodded. "Any communication from the facility?" "None. And Captain Lorek reports the same. The place is completely silent." "That doesn't sound good." Walker turned to his communications officer. "Any word from Lieutenant Miller aboard the Dominion?" "Yes, sir. She reports that Admiral Tarn has made contact with the Emperor. The Emperor claims he never authorized any action against Earth and has ordered a full investigation into Lord Dren's activities." Walker's face remained serious. "Let's hope that's true." The view screen showed the Vigilant keeping pace beside them. Captain Lorek had been professional but cold since their departure. Walker couldn't blame her. No Imperial officer would be comfortable escorting a human warship through Imperial space. "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "we're picking up debris ahead." Walker frowned. "Show me." The view screen changed to show scattered pieces of metal, floating in space. Some were clearly parts of ships. "Analysis?" Walker asked. "Imperial design, sir. Looks like at least 2 small patrol ships were destroyed here." Walker opened a channel to the Vigilant. "Captain Lorek, are you seeing this?" Lorek's face appeared on the screen, her expression grim. "Yes, Captain. Those were Imperial security vessels assigned to protect the research facility. Any idea what happened to them?" "The damage pattern suggests they were hit by high-energy weapons, very powerful ones." Lorek paused. "Captain, we should approach with extreme caution." "Agreed. Let's go to silent running. Minimal power, no active scans." Both ships reduced their energy signatures and continued forward slowly. Soon they came within visual range of the facility, a large ring-shaped structure orbiting a small gray moon. "No visible damage to the outer hull," Bell observed. "But no lights either. The whole place looks dead." Walker made his decision. "We need to go inside, prepare a boarding party." An hour later, Walker led a mixed team through the dark corridors of the research facility. 3 officers from the Defiant walked alongside 3 Imperial soldiers from the Vigilant. Captain Lorek had insisted on coming herself, unwilling to trust the investigation to others. Their flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing empty labs and abandoned workstations. Emergency lights provided minimal illumination, bathing everything in an eerie red glow. "Where is everyone?" Bell whispered. "This facility should have at least 100 staff." "No signs of battle," Lorek noted, her hand resting on her weapon. "No blood, no blast marks." They reached a large set of doors marked with Imperial symbols. Walker couldn't read them, but Lorek's face darkened. "Restricted area," she translated. "High-level clearance only." "Can you open it?" Walker asked. Lorek hesitated, then nodded. She placed her hand on a scanner, and after a moment the doors slid open with a hiss. The room beyond was massive, a central laboratory with dozens of workstations arranged in circles. Unlike the rest of the facility, this room had power. Screens flickered with data, and equipment hummed softly. And at the center stood a tall, thin man in elaborate Imperial robes. He turned as they entered, showing no surprise at their arrival. "Ah, visitors," he said calmly. "I've been expecting you." Lorek stepped forward, her weapon raised. "Lord Dren, by order of the Emperor, you are under investigation for unauthorized military action against Earth." Dren smiled coldly. "Captain Lorek, how disappointing to see you working with humans." His gaze shifted to Walker. "And you must be the brave Earth captain who ventured into our territory." "Captain Walker, yes?" Walker nodded, studying the man carefully. "Where is your staff, Lord Dren?" "Gone. I dismissed them when I learned of your approach. What we discuss here is not for common ears." Walker moved slowly around the edge of the room, noting the various pieces of equipment. Some looked Imperial, but others. "You've been studying human technology." "Studying?" "No, Captain. Improving it." Dren gestured to a large device in the corner. "Do you recognize that?" Walker did. It was similar to the drive system that powered the Defiant, the technology that allowed them to bypass Imperial defenses. How did you get this? Walker demanded. Not all humans believe in peace, Captain. Some can be bought. Others simply hate their own government enough to help us. Dren's smile widened. But that's just one piece of the puzzle. Lorik moved closer to Dren. You attacked the human research station. Why? To start what should have been finished 20 years ago. Dren's voice hardened. Humans are dangerous. They advance too quickly. In just 2 decades, they've nearly matched technology that took us centuries to develop. The quarantine was a mistake. They should have been eliminated when we had the chance. The Emperor doesn't agree. Lorik said firmly. The Emperor is weak. He fears war with humans because of a few lost ships 20 years ago. Dren shook his head. But I found a better way. He pressed a button on his wrist and the floor in the center of the room began to open. A platform rose carrying what looked like a massive weapon, a cylinder at least 10 meters long with complex machinery surrounding it. This, Dren said proudly, is the answer to our human problem. Walker felt a chill run down his spine. What is it? We call it the Void Lance. It combines Imperial power systems with human targeting technology. When fired, it creates a subspace rupture that destroys everything within half a light year. No shields can stop it. No ship can outrun it. And you plan to use this against Earth, Walker said, his voice tight with anger. Not just Earth, your entire solar system. Dren's eyes gleamed with fanatical light. One shot, and the human threat ends forever. One of the officers from the Defiant had been quietly examining the weapon. Tom Fletcher was the ship's chief. Engineer, a quiet man who rarely spoke unless he had something important to say. Captain, Fletcher called out, his voice urgent. This design is flawed. Badly flawed. Dren's smile faltered. Impossible. My scientists don't understand how our technology works with yours, Fletcher interrupted. This won't just create a localized rupture, it'll trigger a chain reaction through subspace. What does that mean? Lorik asked. Fletcher's face was... It means this weapon won't just destroy Earth's solar system. It'll collapse the hyperspace lanes connecting at least a third of the galaxy. Dozens of systems would be cut off, unable to receive supplies or aid. Billions could die, humans and Imperials alike. Dren's expression didn't change. A necessary sacrifice to ensure the Empire's future. Walker looked at Lorik, seeing the horror in her eyes. They had both realized the same thing. Dren wasn't just a zealot. He was insane. Lord Dren, Lorik said formally, by the authority of the Emperor, I place you under arrest for treason against the Empire. Dren laughed. You're too late, Captain. He pressed another button on his wrist. The weapon is already beginning its activation sequence. In exactly 10 minutes, the Void Lance will fire at Earth, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Alarms began to sound throughout the facility as lights on the massive weapon came to life. A countdown appeared on the main screen. 10 to rear, 9:59, 9:58. Walker turned to Fletcher. Can you stop it? The engineer was already moving toward the weapon's control systems. Maybe, but the security lockouts... He looked up, his face grim. I'll need time. Walker nodded and drew his weapon. Then we'll give you time. As if on cue, doors around the laboratory burst open. Imperial soldiers, Dren's personal guards, poured in, weapons ready. Kill them all! Dren shouted as he backed away toward an exit. The room erupted in chaos as both human and Imperial officers dove for cover. Walker caught Lorik's eye across the room. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Then Lorik nodded slightly. They had 9 minutes to save billions of lives. Chaos filled the laboratory as energy blasts flew across the room. Walker ducked behind a heavy metal table that had been flipped onto its side. Beside him, First Officer Bell fired her weapon with careful precision. 8 minutes, Bell shouted, over the noise of battle. Across the room, Captain Lorik and her Imperial soldiers were engaged in a fierce exchange with Dren's guards. Despite their different uniforms, the humans and loyal Imperials fought as one team, covering each other and coordinating their attacks without words. We need to get to Dren, Walker called to Lorik. He might have an override code. Lorik nodded and pointed to a door at the far end of the lab. He went that way, heading for the control center. Walker looked over at Fletcher, who was frantically working at the weapons control panel. "How's it coming?" "Not good, sir," Fletcher replied, his face shiny with sweat. "The security systems are blocking me, and even if I get through, the power core is already building energy. It needs to be shut down manually." "Where?" Walker demanded. Fletcher pointed to a sealed chamber beneath the massive weapon. "In there. But sir, the radiation levels are already climbing. Anyone who goes in won't come out." Walker's face hardened. "Keep trying the computer. Bell, with me. We're going after Dren." "I'm coming too," Lorik said, joining them as they made their way toward the door. The three officers moved through the facility, following signs of Dren's hasty retreat. Emergency lights flashed, and occasional announcements in the Imperial language echoed through the corridors. "What is that saying?" Bell asked as they ran. "Evacuation warning," Lorik translated. "Dren has started the facility's self-destruct sequence. We have less than 7 minutes." They reached a heavily armored door marked with Imperial symbols. Lorik placed her hand on the scanner, but it flashed red. "He's locked us out," she said. Walker examined the door. "Can we blast through?" "No. This is designed to withstand ship-level weapons." Bell pointed to a maintenance panel nearby. "What about that? Could we access the door controls through there?" Lorik nodded. "Possibly." As Bell worked on the panel, Walker's communicator crackled to life. "Captain," Fletcher's voice came through, tense and urgent. "I've managed to slow the countdown, but I can't stop it. The weapon will fire in 10 minutes now instead of 5, but that's all I can do from here." "Good work," Walker replied. "Keep trying." "There's something else," Fletcher continued. "I've analyzed the targeting system. It's not aimed at Earth." Walker frowned. "What?" "It's aimed at the hyperspace junction near Alpha Centauri. If it hits there, it will collapse all connected lanes. The destructive wave would reach Earth within minutes, and then continue to at least 12 major Imperial worlds." Walker and Lorik exchanged shocked looks. "Dren's insane," Lorik whispered. "This would cripple the Empire, not save it." "I think that's his plan," Walker said grimly. "He doesn't just want to destroy Earth. He wants to reshape the Empire, cut off worlds that might oppose him." The door suddenly slid open as Bell finished her work on the panel. "Got it!" The control center beyond was a circular room with screens covering the walls. At its center stood Lord Dren, working at a command console. "It's over, Dren," Walker called, his weapon raised. Dren turned slowly, his face calm despite the chaos around him. "Over? No, Captain. It's just beginning. My new empire will rise from the ashes of the old." "Your weapon won't just destroy Earth," Lorik said. "It will devastate Imperial worlds too. Billions of your own people will die." "Necessary sacrifices," Dren replied coldly. "The survivors will be stronger and they will follow me." Walker stepped forward. "Give us the override code." Dren laughed. "There is no override. I made sure of that." Without warning, Dren drew a small weapon and fired at Walker. Bell moved fast, pushing her captain aside, but the energy blast caught her in the shoulder. She fell with a cry of pain. Lorik fired immediately, hitting Dren in the chest. He staggered back but remained standing, protected by some kind of energy shield. "Imperial technology," Dren said, smiling despite his obvious pain. "Not even your weapons can stop me now." Walker's communicator crackled again. "Captain." Fletcher's voice was desperate now. "We're out of time. The only way to stop this is to manually disconnect the power core from inside the radiation chamber." "That's suicide," Walker replied. "I know, sir, but there's no other way." A terrible silence fell over the command channel. Then Fletcher spoke again, his voice calm and determined. "I volunteer, sir. My father died in the First War with the Empire. I always wondered if I'd have been brave enough to do what he did. Now I know." Walker closed his eyes briefly. "Fletcher." "It's been an honor, Captain. Tell my wife I love her." The channel went silent as Fletcher cut the connection. In the laboratory, Tom Fletcher looked at the sealed radiation chamber door. The warning lights flashed red around it, and the temperature in the room was rising as the weapon's power core reached critical levels. He took a deep breath and entered his override code. The door slid open, revealing a small chamber with a glowing central column. The air inside shimmered with deadly radiation. Fletcher stepped in without hesitation. The door sealed behind him. Back in the control center, Walker, Bell, and Lorik had surrounded Dren, who continued to smile despite the situation. "You've lost," Walker said. "Have I?" Dren gestured to the countdown on the main screen. 8 minutes. Remains not enough time for you to escape this facility before it self-destructs. Suddenly, the countdown froze, then, number by number, it began to reset itself. 9:59, 9:58, and then it stopped completely, replaced by a simple message. System shut down. Dren's face twisted in rage. Impossible! Walker's communicator came to life one last time. "It's done, Captain." Fletcher's voice was weak, barely audible. "Core disconnected. Weapon neutralized." "Fletcher," Walker said, his voice breaking slightly. "We're coming to get you." There was no response. Dren let out a howl of rage and lunged at Walker, but Lorik moved faster. Her weapon fired 3 times, overloading Dren's shield. The Imperial Lord fell to the ground, his plans dying with him. 1 month later, Captain James Walker stood in the Grand Hall of the Imperial Palace. The Emperor himself sat on a throne before him, with Admiral Tarn and other high-ranking officials standing. Nearby, "Captain Walker," the Emperor spoke, his voice carrying across the massive room. "Your actions have saved not only your world but many of ours as well. The Empire owes you a debt." Walker bowed slightly. "My engineer, Tom Fletcher, deserves the credit, Your Highness. He gave his life to stop Lord Dren's weapon. His sacrifice will be remembered," the Emperor promised, "and honored in the new treaty between our peoples." Walker accepted the data crystal the Emperor held out. It contained the new agreement. One that would end the quarantine of Earth and allow limited human exploration and trade within the Empire. "This is a new beginning," the Emperor said. "One built on mutual respect rather than fear." As Walker left the palace, Admiral Tarn walked with him to the landing bay where the Defiant waited. "Your Lieutenant Miller has been quite helpful," Tarn said. "She's taught our engineers more in a month than we've learned in years." Walker smiled. "She'll be pleased to hear that." They stopped at the entrance to the bay, and Tarn extended his hand in the human gesture he had learned. "Safe journey, Captain Walker." Walker shook the offered hand. "Thank you, Admiral, for trusting us when it mattered most." "Perhaps one day," Tarn said thoughtfully, "we'll serve together." "I'd like that," Walker replied. Aboard the Defiant, the crew stood at attention as Walker returned. Lieutenant Miller was there, having rejoined the ship the previous day. "All systems ready, Captain," she reported with a smile. "Our escort is standing by." Walker nodded and moved to his command chair. Through the view screen, he could see the Imperial ships that would accompany them to the edge of Imperial space. Not as guards this time, but as honored escorts. "Set course for Earth, Lieutenant," Walker ordered. "It's time to go home." As the Defiant pulled away from the Imperial capital, Walker thought of Tom Fletcher and the 42 scientists who had died on Mars. Their sacrifice had not been in vain. A new chapter was beginning, one where humans and the Empire might learn to work together rather than fear each other. The stars stretched into lines as the Defiant jumped to speed. Somewhere out there, the future waited. Admiral Kor stood on the command deck of the Sovereign Might, his scaled hands clasped behind his back as he gazed at the blue-green planet through the viewport. Earth looked peaceful from orbit, almost serene. The humans had fought bravely, he had to admit, but in the end their resistance crumbled just like the Coalition's strategic models had predicted. "Send the message to High Command," Kor ordered, his deep voice echoing across the silent bridge. "Earth has fallen. The human threat is neutralized." His second-in-command, Officer Drell, bowed slightly. "At once, Admiral. The Coalition will celebrate this victory for generations." Kor nodded, satisfaction warming his cold blood. The war that had raged across 3 star systems for the past 2 Earth years was finally over. Humanity, with their unpredictable tactics and stubborn refusal to surrender, had been a thorn in the Coalition's side since first contact. But now, their orbital defenses lay in ruins, their space fleet scattered and destroyed. "Begin the occupation protocols," Kor commanded. "I want control of all remaining orbital stations within the next rotation." 200 miles below the Sovereign Might, Captain Tom Reynolds crouched in the darkness of an underground bunker, surrounded by holographic displays showing the Coalition ships in orbit. His uniform was torn and dirty, his face covered in a week's worth of stubble, but his eyes remained sharp, focused. "Status report," he demanded, glancing at the communications officer beside him. "Coalition forces have taken the Luna base and the orbital platforms," Lieutenant Baker replied, her voice steady despite the defeat weighing on her shoulders. "They're broadcasting victory messages across all channels." Reynolds nodded slowly. "And our satellites?" "The stealth network is still operational. They haven't detected them yet." "Good," Reynolds said, allowing himself a small smile. "And protocol diaspora?" The room fell silent. Baker tapped a few commands into her console, bringing up a new display. Hundreds of tiny dots moved away from Earth in all directions, already far beyond the range of standard Coalition scanners. "Last ship cleared the solar system 4 hours ago, sir," Baker reported. 3 billion civilians evacuated. The colony ships report all cryopods functioning normally. Reynolds exhaled slowly. The aliens didn't know it yet, but they had conquered an empty shell. When the Coalition's intentions became clear 6 years ago, humanity had prepared for the worst. The massive underground shipyards had worked day and night, building enormous colony vessels designed to escape detection. "And the military assets?" he asked quietly. "Admiral Wilson reports the Titan fleet reached the Proxima staging area safely. General Rodriguez confirms Mars base self-destructed after evacuation. All technology and weapon designs were purged from Earth databases." Reynolds stood up straight, walking to the center of the command room. Around him, the last 200 members of Earth's Defense Command watched in silence. "They think they've won," he said, his voice filling the room. "They believe they've seen the full measure of humanity's strength and defeated it." He gestured to the display showing the Coalition ships. "But they've only fought our delaying force. The real war hasn't even begun." On the 5th day of occupation, Admiral Kor walked through the abandoned streets of what had once been London. The city was eerily quiet. Coalition troops had secured the area, but something felt wrong. "Where are all the humans?" he asked the intelligence officer accompanying him. "Our estimates suggest many died in the orbital bombardments, Admiral," the officer replied. "Others have likely fled to the countryside." Kor frowned. The bombardment had been precise, targeting only military installations, and their scans had shown a planet with nearly 8 billion inhabitants just months ago. Even accounting for casualties, the cities should not be this empty. "Your report stated we would face significant ground resistance," Kor noted. "Yet, we've encountered almost none. Perhaps their will to fight died with their fleet, Admiral." But Kor wasn't convinced. In every previous conflict, humans fought to the last, defending their territories with a ferocity that had impressed even the most battle-hardened Coalition commanders. "Scan for underground structures," he ordered suddenly, "and increase our orbital surveillance. I want to know where they've gone." "They're getting suspicious," Baker reported as fresh intelligence came through their secure channels. "Coalition forces are extending their search patterns." Reynolds nodded, studying the displays. "It doesn't matter, they're looking in the wrong place." The bunker had become their home for the past week, as they coordinated with the remnants of Earth's military still in hiding. Scattered across the planet, small groups of soldiers and operatives lay dormant, waiting for orders. "Message from Admiral Wilson, sir," Baker said, her eyes widening as she read the incoming transmission. "The Titan fleet has successfully rendezvoused with the Mars contingent. The Arcturus shipyards are operational, and the first wave of battleships is already under construction." A murmur of excitement ran through the command center. Reynolds allowed his people this moment of hope. For the first time since the coalition arrived, good news had reached them. "Time estimate until the counteroffensive can begin?" Reynolds asked. "Admiral Wilson projects 3 years, sir. We need time to build up our forces and establish the colony worlds as secure bases." 3 years of occupation, 3 years of hiding, and watching their planet controlled by alien forces. Reynolds clenched his jaw but nodded. "Send the order to all remaining cells," he said firmly. "Initiate Operation Shadows, minimal engagement, maximum intelligence gathering. I want to know everything about their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses." In his quarters aboard the Sovereign Might, Admiral Core reviewed the latest reports with growing concern. The human population counts weren't adding up. Initial estimates suggested billions of inhabitants, but scans were only detecting a few, 100 million life signs, and the resistance they had encountered was sporadic, almost performative. "Admiral," Drell said, entering the room with an urgent expression, "our scouts have discovered something unusual in the asteroid belt." Core looked up from his reports. "Show me." Drell activated a holographic display revealing images of massive engine signatures leading out of the solar system in multiple directions. "These energy patterns match nothing in our database," Drell explained, "but they appear to be warp signatures of some kind. Hundreds of them, all departing Earth in the weeks before our arrival." Core stood so quickly that his chair crashed to the floor behind him. "Why wasn't this detected earlier?" "The signatures were masked somehow, sir. Our routine scans missed them entirely. It was only when we calibrated for specific human energy patterns that we found them." Core stared at the display, a cold feeling spreading through his body as the truth dawned on him. "They knew we were coming," he whispered. "They evacuated their planet." "Sir? This isn't their surrender," Core said, his voice rising with sudden clarity. "This is their strategic withdrawal." As if confirming his revelation, the ship's alarms suddenly blared to life. Core rushed to the bridge, with Drell close behind him. On the main display, a message was repeating across all coalition frequencies. A simple text transmission in the human language. It read, "This was only round 1. 3 years passed under coalition rule. Earth became a forward operating base for their fleet, its resources steadily stripped for the expansion of the alien empire. The remaining humans lived under strict control, permitted to work only in approved sectors." On the surface, the coalition's victory appeared complete. Dr. Alan Stone adjusted his laboratory coat and nodded politely to the coalition guards as he entered the research facility. To them, he was Dr. Lon, a brilliant xenobiologist who had willingly defected to the coalition after the invasion. His scaled supervisor, Chief Scientist Mev, trusted him implicitly. "Good morning, Dr. Lon," Mev said, her 4 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of pleasure among her kind. "Your findings on human cellular regeneration were most impressive." "Thank you, Chief Scientist," Stone replied, bowing slightly as was custom. "I believe the applications could benefit coalition medicine significantly." What Mev didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Dr. Alan Stone was humanity's most deeply embedded spy. His real name wasn't even Stone. That identity had been created years before the invasion. Every day for 3 years, he had gathered intelligence on coalition biology, technology, and most importantly, their weaknesses. "I've been granted access to the central database for our next project," Mev announced. "We'll be studying ways to improve coalition soldiers' resistance to radiation." Stone nodded, his expression neutral while his mind raced. Central database access was exactly what he'd been working toward for months. "I'm honored by your trust," he said. Halfway across the world, in the ruins of what had once been Rio de Janeiro, Maria Martinez moved through the shadows of destroyed buildings. The night vision implanted in her left eye, technology the coalition didn't know humans possessed, showed her the patrol routes of the alien soldiers. Martinez had once been a general in Earth's defense forces. Now she led the planet's largest resistance cell, coordinating attacks designed not to win battles but to feed false information to the enemy. She reached the hidden entrance to their underground base and pressed her palm against a section of concrete that looked no different from the rest. A scanner read her DNA, and a hidden door slid open. Inside, dozens of resistance fighters worked, at stations monitoring coalition communications, troop movements, and supply lines. They all stood at attention when she entered. "At ease," she said, moving to the central table where a holographic map showed coalition positions worldwide. "Report." Her second-in-command, Jack Wilson, stepped forward. "Contact established with Luna Base Resistance. They've successfully planted the false data in the coalition mining operation." Martinez nodded. "And our friend on the inside?" "Message received 1 hour ago," Wilson replied, lowering his voice. "Dr. Stone has been granted central database access. Operation Trojan is a go." A murmur of excitement ran through the room. For 3 years they had worked toward this moment. Now the real counterattack could begin. "Send the signal to Proxima," Martinez ordered. "Tell Reynolds, the door is open." In the depths of space, beyond the detection range of Coalition, sensors Captain Reynolds, now Admiral Reynolds, stood on the bridge of the Defiance, the largest warship ever built by human hands. Around his vessel, hundreds of battleships, carriers, and destroyers floated in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of an alien sun. "Signal from Earth, Admiral," his communications officer reported. "Dr. Stone is in position. Martinez says, the door is open." Reynolds nodded, a tight smile forming on his lips. "Acknowledge the message and notify all ships. Operation Scorched Earth begins now." Throughout the massive fleet, lights began to change from standby yellow to combat red. Weapon systems powered up and soldiers moved to their battle stations. Lieutenant Baker, now his XO, approached with a tablet. "Sir, the first reports from our scout ships are coming in. Coalition outposts in the Rigel sector have been hit as planned. Their defenses were completely unprepared." "And their response?" "Confusion, sir. They're still trying to determine who attacked them." Reynolds studied the tactical display. For 3 years, humanity had built this fleet in secret, using the resources of a dozen star systems beyond Coalition territory. At the same time, Dr. Stone and others had infiltrated Coalition operations, feeding them false information about human capabilities while gathering critical intelligence. "Send in the second wave," Reynolds ordered. "Hit their supply lines in the Procyon system, then withdraw before reinforcements arrive." "Yes, Admiral." Reynolds turned to look out at his fleet once more. The ships represented humanity's new approach to warfare. Not the direct confrontation the Coalition had expected, but something more elusive and deadly. Each vessel incorporated technology the aliens had never seen, designed specifically to counter their weapons and defenses. "It's time they learned who they're really fighting," he said quietly. On the Coalition homeworld, Admiral Kor stood before the High Council, his once proud posture now stiff with tension. "Explain these attacks," demanded the High Counselor, her voice cold with anger. "You assured us the humans were defeated." "They were defeated," Kor insisted. "The forces we faced at Earth were destroyed completely." "Then who is attacking our outposts?" another counselor shouted. "Who destroyed our mining operation in the Rigel sector?" Kor hesitated, the reports, in his hands trembling slightly. We believe it may be human forces we were unaware of." The council chamber erupted in outrage. As the shouting continued, Kor's communicator vibrated. He glanced down at the message and felt his blood run cold. "High Council," he said, his voice cutting through the noise. "I've just received word that our defense station in the Procyon system has been destroyed. The attacking ships, they're definitely human in design but far more advanced than anything we encountered. At Earth." The room fell silent. "How is this possible?" the High Counselor asked finally. Kor looked up, the truth dawning on him with terrible clarity. "The Earth invasion. It wasn't the end of the war. It was only the beginning. We never fought their main force. Just then, the chamber's main screen activated automatically. A human face appeared, a man with steel-gray eyes and the bearing of a commander. "I am Admiral Thomas Reynolds of the United Earth Fleet," the human said, his voice calm but filled with determination. "3 years ago, you attacked our homeworld, believing you had measured the full extent of humanity's strength." Reynolds leaned closer to the camera. "You were wrong. What you fought was only our delaying force while we evacuated our people and prepared our real military. Now we're coming for you." The transmission cut off, leaving the Coalition High Council in stunned silence. In orbit above their world, sensors began to detect hundreds of warp signatures approaching. The war had returned, and this time, humanity was the invader. The Coalition defense fleet above their homeworld of Terek broke apart like glass under a hammer. Human warships moved with a precision that stunned the alien defenders. Their weapons, technology that had remained hidden during the Earth invasion, cut through Coalition shields as if they weren't there. "Second wave, advance," Admiral Reynolds ordered from the bridge of the Defiance. "Focus fire on their orbital defense platforms." Lieutenant Baker nodded, relaying the commands to the fleet. On the main view screen, Coalition vessels desperately tried to regroup, but their formations were in chaos. "They're attempting to adapt their shields to our weapons, sir," reported the tactical officer. Reynolds smiled grimly. "They won't succeed. Dr. Stone made sure of that." For 3 years, Stone had secretly modified the Coalition's shield systems, introducing a subtle flaw in their design that made them vulnerable to the specific frequencies used by human weapons. It was a masterpiece of patient sabotage. "Sir, Coalition reinforcements detected approaching from their outer colonies," Baker announced. "Right on schedule," Reynolds said. "Deploy the minefields along their approach vectors and prepare the ambush fleet." As he spoke, hundreds of stealth mines activated in the space lanes, their sensors locked onto the unique signature of Coalition: warp drives. When the reinforcement fleet arrived, they would find a deadly welcome waiting for them. On Earth, Maria Martinez stood at the entrance of the Resistance bunker, watching as her fighters prepared for battle. Today, after 3 years of hiding and gathering intelligence, they would finally strike. "All teams report ready, General," Wilson said, approaching with an assault rifle in hand. Across the globe, similar scenes were playing out as resistance cells prepared to rise up. "The Coalition garrison has been reduced by 60%, Martinez noted, checking her own weapon. "Most of their ships were pulled to defend their homeworld." "Just as we planned," Wilson replied with a tight smile. Martinez nodded. When Reynolds had informed them of his intention to strike the Coalition homeworld, they had known it would create the perfect opportunity. The aliens would have no choice but to recall ships from Earth to defend their home, leaving their occupation forces weakened. "Remember, our priority is taking the command centers intact," Martinez reminded her troops as they gathered around her. "We need their communication systems to coordinate with Admiral Reynolds." She looked at each face in turn, men and women, who had survived occupation, who had lost homes and families but never lost hope. "Today we take back our planet," she said simply, then, raising her fist, "For Earth." "For Earth," came the thunderous reply. Dr. Alan Stone worked quickly in the central database chamber, his fingers flying over the alien controls. Around him, alarms blared as the Coalition facility went into lockdown. "Dr. Lon, what are you doing?" Chief Scientist Mev demanded, rushing into the room. "The security systems report unauthorized access." Stone didn't look up from his work. "I'm sorry, Mev. My name isn't Lon. It never was." Understanding dawned in the alien's 4 eyes. You're with them. The attacking humans." "I am them," Stone replied, completing the final sequence. On screens around the room, the Coalition's defense grid began to shut down sector by sector. Stone reached into his pocket and removed a small device, pressing it against his temple. The holographic disguise that had altered his features for 3 years flickered and disappeared, revealing his true face, harder, scarred from battles fought before the occupation. You've been working for the humans all along, Mev whispered, backing away. But why? We offered you knowledge, position, respect. Stone looked up at last, his eyes cold. You offered me those things after you attacked my world and killed millions of my people. Did you think I would actually accept? Before Mev could respond, the facility shook with a distant explosion. The human counterattack had reached them. The defense grid is down, Stone said, standing straight. Every coalition military installation on Earth just lost their shields and automated weapons. Your troops are now fighting without support against a prepared enemy who knows all your weaknesses. He drew a small pistol from beneath his lab coat, a human weapon that had remained hidden for 3 years. I truly am sorry, Mev. You were kind to me. He pointed the weapon at the control panel rather than at her. But this war isn't over. It's just beginning. Admiral Kor stood in the ruins of the Coalition High Council chamber. The building had been hit in the first wave of the human attack. Emergency lights cast red shadows over the scene as he surveyed the damage. Admiral, a junior officer called, picking his way through the debris. Urgent communication from Earth. Kor took the offered datapad, reading the message with growing horror. The occupation forces were under coordinated attack from human resistance fighters. Over half of the command centers had already fallen, and worst of all, their defensive systems had been compromised planet-wide. How? He growled. How could they have planned this? Sir, the officer hesitated. There's more. We've detected massive energy signatures in Earth orbit. Ships, sir. Hundreds of them appearing out of nowhere. Kor's hand tightened on the datapad until it cracked. Cloaking technology. They had cloaking technology all along. He looked up at the sky, visible through a hole blasted in the council chamber roof. Somewhere up there, human warships were systematically destroying the coalition fleet. Send a message to all remaining ships, he ordered. Fall back to defensive position, Alpha. We need to regroup. Sir? The officer looked confused. Alpha is our last resort position if we retreat there. I know what it means, Kor snapped, but we have no choice. These aren't the same humans we fought 3 years ago. These are something else entirely. As if confirming his words, the ground shook as another coalition defense installation exploded in the distance. On the bridge of the Defiance, Reynolds watched as the coalition fleet began to break formation, pulling back to a defensive position around their inner planets. They're retreating, sir, Baker announced, unable to keep the satisfaction from her voice. Not retreating, Reynolds corrected. Regrouping. Admiral Kor is no fool. He's realized this isn't a battle he can win, so he's shifting to a defensive strategy. He studied the tactical display, noting the coalition's new formation. Signal the fleet. All ships to hold position. Do not pursue. Baker looked surprised. Sir, we have them on the run. Reynolds shook his head. That's what they want us to think. They're pulling back to their most heavily fortified position. If we follow, we'll be fighting on their terms. He smiled thinly. We didn't come this far to fall for such an obvious trap. He tapped a command into his console, bringing up a communication channel to Earth. General Martinez, what's your status? The screen flickered, then showed Martinez's face, smudged, with dirt and blood but smiling fiercely. Earth Command Center secured, Admiral. Coalition forces are surrendering across the globe. Dr. Stone's sabotage worked perfectly. Reynolds nodded, satisfaction warming his chest. Excellent work, General. Phase 1 complete. He glanced back at the tactical display, where the coalition fleet huddled in defensive formation. Now, he said quietly, we show them what humanity can really do. 2 days after the attack began, the coalition's supreme leader requested a meeting. A small, unarmed transport approached the Defiance under a flag of truce, or the coalition equivalent, a pulsing blue light that signaled peaceful intentions. Admiral Reynolds stood in the meeting room, hands clasped behind his back. The viewport showed the stars and, in the distance, the coalition homeworld of Terek. Lieutenant Baker stood at his side, along with 3 armed guards. Though they had accepted the peace envoy, trust was in short supply. The doors slid open. 2 coalition officials entered, escorted by human security. One wore the elaborate uniform of a high diplomat. The other, to Reynolds' surprise, was Admiral Corr himself. "Admiral Reynolds," the diplomat began, making the coalition gesture of greeting. Hands open, palms forward. "I am High Negotiator Vel. I speak with the voice of the Supreme Leader." Reynolds nodded, but did not return the gesture. "State your business." Vel seemed taken aback by the directness, but continued. "The coalition wishes to discuss terms for a cessation of hostilities." "Surrender," Reynolds corrected. "Not a cessation, a surrender." Corr stepped forward, his face tight with controlled anger. "You cannot expect us to surrender our entire civilization to you." Reynolds smiled without humor. "Just as you expected us to surrender Earth? To watch as you stripped our homeworld of resources and treated our people like slaves?" "That was different," Corr insisted. "Earth was just one planet. We're talking about 17 worlds, billions of coalition citizens." "Then perhaps you should have considered that before attacking us," Baker said coldly. Reynolds held up a hand to silence her, then turned to Vel. "We will accept nothing less than unconditional surrender of all military forces. Your fleet will stand down. Your weapons will be deactivated. Only then will we discuss the future of coalition worlds." "Impossible," Vel exclaimed. "The High Council would never—" "The High Council no longer exists," Reynolds interrupted. "Your government buildings were the first targets we hit. Your leaders are either dead or in hiding." He stepped closer to the aliens, his voice lowering. "You have 6 hours to decide. After that, we launch the next phase of our attack." "What?" "Next phase?" Corr demanded, his scales darkening with stress. "You've already destroyed half our fleet and taken our homeworld's orbital defenses." Reynolds smiled grimly. "That was just the beginning." On Earth, Dr. Stone walked through the ruins of what had once been the Coalition's primary research facility. Now human scientists worked among the wreckage, studying captured alien technology. Stone approached a secured vault at the center of the complex, where Martinez waited with a team of soldiers. "Are you sure about this?" Martinez asked as he approached. "If you're right about what's in there." "I'm sure," Stone replied grimly. "I helped them develop it, though they never knew my real purpose." He placed his hand on the scanner, still, keyed to his coalition identity, and the massive door began to slide open. Inside, suspended in a containment field, was a glowing sphere of swirling energy. "Project Omega," Stone said quietly. "The Coalition's final solution for dealing with humanity." Martinez stepped closer, her face illuminated by the eerie light. "What is it?" "A genetically targeted bioweapon," Stone explained, "designed to affect only humans. One release would have been enough to wipe out every person remaining on Earth, while leaving the planet habitable for Coalition colonization." Martinez's face hardened. "They were planning genocide." "Yes, and not just for Earth. The weapon was designed to be modified for use against any species that resisted Coalition rule." Stone looked at her gravely. "This is what we were fighting against. What we're still fighting against." Martinez nodded slowly, then turned to her communications officer. "Send word to Admiral Reynolds immediately. He needs to see this." Reynolds stared at the screen, his face pale as he viewed the images transmitted from Earth. The bioweapon was even worse than he had feared. Intelligence had suggested the Coalition was developing something, but this— "They would have used this on us," Baker whispered beside him. "On all of us." Reynolds nodded grimly. "And they would have used it on others too. This changes everything." He straightened his uniform and turned to his communications officer. "Open a channel to all human ships and bases. Priority 1. The officer worked quickly. "Channel open, sir." Reynolds took a deep breath. "This is Admiral Reynolds to all human forces. We have confirmed that the Coalition developed and intended to use a species-specific bioweapon against Earth. Evidence suggests this was not a one-time plan, but part of a larger strategy for dealing with any resistance to their rule." He paused, letting the information sink in. In light of this discovery, our mission has changed. This is no longer just about Earth. It's about ensuring the safety of all intelligent species against a power that would commit genocide without hesitation. His voice hardened. Operation Hammer Fall is now in effect. All ships prepare for jump to your designated targets. We end this. Today. Admiral Kor paced in the small room where he and Vel had been left to consider Reynolds's ultimatum. The 6 hours were nearly up. We should agree to their terms, Vel said, slumped in a chair. We have no choice. And become slaves to humans? Kor growled. Never. The Supreme Leader will send reinforcements from the outer colonies. We just need to hold out. A soft chime indicated someone at the door. It slid open to reveal Reynolds and Baker, their faces grim. Your time is up, Reynolds said. What is your answer? Before Vel could speak, Kor stepped forward. We reject your demands. The Coalition will never surrender. Reynolds nodded, as if expecting this answer. We've just discovered your bioweapon program, Admiral Kor, Project Omega. Kor's scales paled visibly. How did you? Dr. Stone sends his regards, Baker said coldly. Vel turned to Kor in shock. What bioweapon? The Council never authorized. The Council authorized everything I asked for, Kor snapped. They understood what was necessary. Reynolds' eyes narrowed. Necessary? You call genocide necessary? It would have been clean, Kor insisted. Quick, painless. Better than this war. The room fell silent. Reynolds studied Kor for a long moment, then turned away in disgust. Lieutenant Baker, escort them back to their ship. They have refused our terms. As they left, Reynolds activated the ship-wide communication system. All hands, battle stations, commence Operation Hammer Fall. Throughout the human fleet, ships began to move. Not just the vessels around Terek, but hundreds more that had remained hidden, waiting for this moment. They appeared seemingly from nowhere as their advanced cloaking systems deactivated, surrounding not just the Coalition homeworld, but every major Coalition colony and outpost across the sector. In the vastness of space, humanity's full military might was finally revealed. A force far greater than the Coalition had ever imagined possible. And at its center, the Defiance turned toward the Coalition defense fleet, weapons powering up for what would be the decisive battle of the war. The final battle lasted less than a day. Coalition forces fought with desperate courage, but they were outmatched in every way. Human ships moved with precision that seemed impossible, their weapons cutting through the alien defenses as if they were made of paper. On the bridge of the Defiance, Admiral Reynolds watched the tactical display as the Coalition's main fleet broke apart under the concentrated fire of his forces. Their flagship is hailing us, sir, Lieutenant Baker reported. Admiral Kor is requesting to speak with you. Reynolds nodded. On screen. The view screen flickered to life, showing Kor's face. The Coalition Admiral looked defeated, his scales dull with exhaustion and stress. Enough, Kor said simply. You've made your point, Admiral Reynolds. I am prepared to offer our surrender. Reynolds studied him for a moment before responding. Unconditional? Yes, Kor replied, his voice hollow. Unconditional. The Supreme Leader has authorized me to act on behalf of all Coalition forces. Order all your ships to power down weapons and shields, Reynolds instructed. Transmit the surrender command on all Coalition frequencies so our forces throughout your territory can verify compliance. Kor nodded. It will be done immediately. As the transmission ended, Baker turned to Reynolds. We did it, sir, we won. Reynolds didn't smile. The fighting is over, Lieutenant. Now comes the hard part. Securing a lasting peace. 1 month later, Reynolds stood in what had once been the Coalition High Council chamber. Now rebuilt, it served as the meeting place for the newly formed Galactic Council. Around the large circular table sat representatives from the Coalition, worlds, along with delegates from Earth and the human colony planets. The treaty before you outlines the terms of peace, Reynolds said, addressing the assembled delegates. The Coalition military will be disbanded. All weapons of mass destruction will be destroyed. And the bioweapon research facility will be converted into a medical research center, overseen by joint human coalition teams. Murmurs filled the room. A coalition representative stood. And what of our worlds? Will they become human colonies? No, Reynolds replied firmly. Each coalition world will retain its sovereignty. There will be no occupation, no forced labor, no resource stripping. We are not conquerors. We never were. The coalition delegates looked surprised. After their attack on Earth, they had expected harsh treatment in return. Instead, the humans were offering something unprecedented. What we propose, Reynolds continued, is a new order, a united council of worlds where disputes are settled peacefully and species work together for mutual benefit rather than domination. Another delegate spoke up. Why should we trust you? How do we know this isn't a trick to lower our guard? A fair question, Reynolds acknowledged. He gestured to Dr. Stone, who stood nearby. Dr. Stone, if you would explain. Stone stepped forward. For 3 years, I lived among you. I learned your culture, your science, your way of thinking. And what I discovered was that despite our differences, despite the actions of your military leaders, most coalition citizens are not so different from humans. You value family, knowledge, progress, the same things we do. He paused, looking around the room. The war was started by leaders hungry for power and resources. It can end with people hungry for peace and cooperation. Maria Martinez walked through the rebuilt streets of Rio de Janeiro, now bustling with activity. Human and coalition engineers worked side by side, restoring the city even better than before. She spotted a familiar face approaching, Jack Wilson, carrying construction plans. The new hospital is ahead of schedule, Wilson reported as he reached her. The coalition medical technicians have been invaluable. Their regeneration technology is saving lives that we couldn't have saved before. Martinez nodded. And the defense grid? Operational, Wilson confirmed. But as agreed, under joint control. No single species can activate it without consensus from the Council. Martinez looked up at the sky, where the faint outlines of orbital platforms could be seen. The new shared defense system designed to protect Earth from any future threat. Not just coalition technology or human innovation, but a blend of both, stronger than either would have been alone. Did you ever think we'd end up here? She asked quietly. Working alongside them? Wilson shook his head. Never. I was sure this would end in their extinction or ours. That was their way of thinking, Martinez replied. Win or die, conquer or be conquered. We needed to show them another path. In a coalition prison on Tarak, Admiral Kor sat, alone in his cell. The door opened and, to his surprise, Admiral Reynolds entered. Come to gloat? Kor asked bitterly. Reynolds shook his head. I came to understand. He sat on the bench opposite Kor. Why did you attack Earth? Your reports must have shown we weren't a threat to you. Kor was silent for a long moment. Fear, he finally admitted. Our long-range scans showed your technological advancement rate was unprecedented. Our models predicted that within 20 years you would surpass us. The High Council decided a preemptive strike was the only option. And now? Now I see we were wrong, Kor said quietly. We failed to understand your species. We thought your strength was in your weapons, your ships, but it was always in here. He tapped his head. Your adaptability, your planning, your willingness to sacrifice for future generations. Reynolds nodded slowly. We learned that from our history. Centuries of conflict taught us that the greatest victories aren't won through force alone. A lesson my people are learning now, Kor acknowledged. Too late for me, perhaps, but not for future generations. Reynolds stood. Your trial begins tomorrow. But regardless of the outcome, know that your people have a place in the new order we're building. 5 years later, Reynolds stood on the observation deck of the newly completed Galactic Council headquarters, a massive space station orbiting a neutral star. Below him, representatives from 24 species mingled in the main hall, not just humans and coalition members, but other civilizations that had joined the growing alliance. Baker, now a captain with her own command, joined him at the viewport. The Arcturus delegation arrived safely, she reported. They're eager to join the council after seeing how the coalition worlds have prospered under the new system. Reynolds nodded, watching as Dr. Stone guided a group of alien scientists through the station's research wing. In the years since the war, Stone had become one of the foremost advocates for cross-species scientific cooperation. "Did you ever imagine this?" Baker asked, echoing Martinez's question from years before. "When we were hiding in that bunker, on Earth waiting for the right moment to strike back?" Reynolds smiled slightly. "Not exactly this, no, I imagined victory. I planned for survival." He gestured to the gathered representatives below. "But this is something better. This is a future." In the great chamber below, delegates from former enemies stood together, planning joint missions to unexplored regions of the galaxy. The Coalition bioweapon facility, once designed for genocide, now produced medical advances that saved lives across a dozen worlds, and Earth, once nearly conquered, had become the symbolic heart of a new galactic community. The war was truly over, and humanity had won not just through force of